Okay, hi, my name's Deb Chantson. This is how to get started on a cultural game. Okay. My name is Deborah, but I go by Deb. If you're writing me a check or crediting me, this is how you spell my name. If you want to find me on LinkedIn, that's how to find me. I use she, her pronouns. Because we're talking about cultural games, I identify as Canadian, South African, Chinese American. I'm a TV and video games writer. I've been doing this for about 17 years now. I am a writer and narrative designer for Sticky Brain Studios. And you can find me through LinkedIn. Okay, so how to get started on a cultural game takeaways. This is what I want you to go away with after this talk. And I want to specify that the cultural for me means like you are part of a BIPOC group, which means you're part of a Black, Indigenous, person of color, racialized, whatever that term is to you now, that you are not white. So this is about getting started at all and getting over self-doubt in making a cultural game, how to overcome the mental roadblocks in pre-production, and things to keep in mind through production. So I am working on a cultural game. I'm working on a game called Rooster. It's about the animals of the Chinese zodiac. We are on Steam, and there's actually a demo available. You can wishlist it, please wishlist it. That would be helpful. So this is not my concept originally. I would have liked to have brought my colleague Connie Choi, who's our art director and concept creator, but she's in Toronto and I'm here. For funding reasons, I'm the only one on the team who's allowed to be outside of the province of Ontario. So anyway, so I bring you a video. We were in the Wholesome Games Direct, and so this is the dev intro video, and then I'll show you the trailer.
Hi, I'm Connie. I'm an art director at Sticky Brain Studios. I'm excited to show you our new game, Rooster. It actually started from a dream I had during Chinese New Year about Rooster and his animal friends. I've had a blast making this game with an amazing team. Hope you enjoy. Hi, I'm Connie.
Sorry. Okay, here we go. So now this is the trailer.
Rooster is a beautiful point-and-click narrative adventure based on the animals of the Chinese zodiac, bringing together the best elements of Chinese culture. Rooster is a terrible party ghost at the Lunar New Year party. Rooster's obnoxious actions even make Rabbit cry. Dragon conjures a powerful potion, sending Rooster hurtling back in time to ancient China to learn some life lessons. Each level has a different kind of gameplay representing the different zodiac animals, like hidden object, dating sim, cooking, puzzles, paper cutting, garden design, tower defense. It's full of delightful surprises with an emotionally engaging story about helping others, creating joy, and showing love in the best ways possible. Wishlist Rooster on Steam to follow us as we bring Rooster to the world.
Sorry. Okay, so I am giving this talk because let's make more cultural games. The ones I really love include Venba and Mineko's Night Market, Dot's Home, and Coral Island. I actually wrote a blog for gamedeveloper.com, which got featured because I spent 300 hours plus in Coral Island. It's really chill when you put on an audiobook and just listen in the background. Anyway, the blog itself was about creating emotionally meaningful connections in a cozy farming life sim adventure. So more of what I'm talking about today can be found in my other game developer blog. It's called The Upside of Using Culture and Personal Stories as Game Pillars. Okay, so getting over cultural game developmental hurdles, because a lot of it is like in your head. So write what you know. The note here is to use your own culture as the starting point. we have two co-founders who are white and disabled, but because it's Connie's concept, they were able to support her. And what I'm finding with making Rooster is that a lot of these cultural authenticity things are inherent to the culture and lived experience. And so if you are not personally of that culture, you miss out on a lot of the little details and intricacies that are best authenticated by someone of the culture that the game is based on. Yeah, don't try to go rogue and use someone else's culture. I have this real annoyance with games that are martial arts based, but it's like putting on a culture, sorry, it's like putting on a costume. And I like to say that my culture is not a costume. Yeah, when you work on identifying characters that are not authentically represented by your team, you get a lot of guessing and stereotypes, and it's unfortunate. Anyway, start from the point where you are inspired. Use that passion and in that great idea as fuel. Rooster is literally a dream come true because Connie had a dream about Chinese New Year and woke up and was like, this is going to be a racing game, and started sketching, and it became something else, obviously, but that's, you know, to say that it's the dream come true is kind of like one of our greatest taglines. Don't doubt your experiences. For me, waffling on whether I'm X, Y, Z enough is like a constant thing because I don't actually speak Chinese, having grown up in South Africa, and then just like my parents spoke two different dialects, and so like we spoke English at home. But everyone's story is unique and original, and as the saying goes, the more specific your story, the more universal it is. Oh, I had a story here. We went to GDC with a booth, and one of the things in the pig level is like it's a tower defense level. And so you're basically keeping the overbearing aunties away from waking up your baby. And so we had booth visitors come from mainland China, and they're like, we had to explain it to them, and then somebody had to translate, but it was like, oh, this is so funny. Ah, like, I totally get it. So that was really gratifying. Call for backup. So I will talk about the language thing, but I was called on as the narrative designer because the team as it was with just Sasha and Ted and Connie, like nobody in there is a writer. So it was really wonderful to be called in so early that I could plan the narrative experience of the whole game. And then, you know, it was like I was their backup. Get language help where you need it. I found that this is where I've gotten a great sense of support. Early on in designing the game, I was thinking of names and whether that actually worked. And because of my language skills, I was like, oh, I just have to check this. So we had a meeting with our composer, and she's like, yeah, it's cool. I'm like, oh, great, meeting over, 30 seconds, great. And then we had a co-op student, a summer co-op student named Summer. So, and she helped a lot with naming the bachelorettes that come up in the dating sim level. So there's dating sim. And as our team grew, just by the nature of who we were attracting to work on the game, we have a lot of East Asians, but we're like different kinds of Asians. So it really helps to validate the choices of, does this work? Does this resonate well enough? Is it cross-cultural enough? And then, you know, with the greater team, it's a way to validate the general choices of content. There's a thing that some people have where it's like, don't dwell on an onus to represent the whole culture. And what I mean by that is, even if you are, you know, presenting the only whatever specific game of your culture it is, you have to pick and choose the best mix. In Venba, Abby was saying that, you know, like he wanted to pick all the different foods, but he kind of had to settle on what was sort of playable and meant the most to him. And in some ways, we've done the same thing. There are some dishes in Rooster that are represented, and it was like, well, where do you cut scope? And Connie is very, very set on having these tochu dumplings because they mean so much to her and her family and her heritage. Oh, you're the bridge. I find I'm offering a perspective of enlightenment, and I joke that it's a little bit of a thread of edutainment because I am a preschool writer for TV, but it's supposed to be an emotionally engaging story, and people will learn what they learn, and it's you offer it, and it is what it is. So it's out there. I had a playthrough with my littlest son last night, and it was nice being able to read everything to him and introduce like, no, that's ginger, honey. That's not what you think it is. Okay, and there is space for you. Every cultural game that makes it to market is a unique product, and you really don't have to make something that everybody likes. Like Rooster is not for hardcore speedrunners. It's not for somebody who's going to skip through the dialogue. For the love of whatever you believe in, like please don't skip the prologue and the demo. So my husband and I had this big thing. It's like, it's not implemented yet. It will be implemented. Where you have to like press really hard on a button to skip the prologue. But there's, even when we're demoing the game, people are like, I don't get it. It's, I don't think it's that fast paced, or the hidden object part is too tedious. And I'm like, that's okay. It's not your kind of game. It's okay. Okay, so securing funding will lead to your credibility and validation. Okay, the process will have you shoring up your thought processes, assembling the best team, at least for the kickoff, planning out the game as best as possible, researching and assessing market viability, formulating your viable product strategy, and moving your best ideas forward. Every idea comes with risk, and cultural games are often seen as greater risk. For Rooster, Sticky Brain invested their own funds, and then we're very appreciative of Canada Media Fund and Ontario Creates funding. Those applications are hard and very complicated, and kind of heartbreaking when you don't get them, because you're investing a lot of your time and effort, and when you're believing in something and it doesn't go, it can be quite devastating. But we are fortunate that we did get it. It took 2 tries. The process in itself of trying to secure funding from wherever it is shows you where the gaps are, and you have to have answers to difficult questions. And sometimes, yeah, it takes time and multiple tries. We've had great success to date, leading up to our Q1 2025 launch. And I'm putting up this slide because there's a real hope out there for people who have their own games. Like if we got this far, I think you can too. We took a booth we had booths at the Game Developers Conference and PAX West. I just had a blog featured this week on best boothing tips. And on my LinkedIn, there's a calm post, and then there's a really ranting post because PAX West was super loud and not a nice experience. We were in the Wholesome Direct and Future of Play showcases. We've had lots of Chinese publisher activity, which has been really gratifying. Just to have bridged that gap, when we had publishers coming by our GDC booth, they're like, oh, this is Chinese, but you're Canadian. Like, yeah. And we've had nice media coverage, which has been really lovely. Thank you for listening. Sorry, I keep looking at my notes thinking like, what else am I supposed to cover? If you show me that you wish listed the game, I will give you a character sticker. So. questions. Hey, thank you. Okay.
Question on the left.
Hi, thanks. Where the game that's focus is sort of outside North America for an audience, or focus on the audiences overseas, how are you finding that's challenging for testing? Are you using testers that are abroad and not focused like specifically in North America, or a white guy audience?
We're using a QA company in Montreal that gave us maple syrup lollipops at GDC
Ooh,
and
that's
really won
nice.
us over. Yeah.
Are you finding like the viewpoint of your testing audience is not like I'm presuming you're not playing specifically to a North American audience, you want a more global audience. So when
Oh,
you're
sorry, that's
finding
right.
testers, where are you getting that testing data from instead of like a bunch of boring honkies in Vancouver who are testing? Where are you getting your test data from? And is that challenging playing for a market that's abroad?
We're actually not playing for the market abroad. We're actually, well, we are. Our main focus is the game that we want to play. And then we're actually appealing to a diasporic crowd. And it's actually kind of a bonus that we're getting to connect so well with people in mainland China who just find it on Weibo and speak really nicely about it. So yeah, I mean, it's to say that we're the bridge of finding the best of Chinese culture. In media interviews, I've said that this is like a love letter to my children to explain Chinese culture to them. And with the little ones play testing with me last night, I was like, okay, so it just means I have to read this to you entirely. And then with my older one, it's like, you might have to like play it in a couple of years when he understands it a little better. But he's really good at the snake level, so yeah.
The question upstairs.
Hi.
You're hearing? Okay. So we had this talk again with somebody else that says like, oh, I don't know if they will like my culture or what I'm going to talk about, but it says it's actually up to you of how you present it. Like nobody likes bureaucracy or cares about it, but they like papers, please. Or who cares about like what happens in a war, but they like the war of mine. So it's like, it's more about how you want to present it and make people hooked on. So what was your challenges of doing that, hooking on people on the culture and the things they're trying to represent?
We had our best kind of reaction and test running that with the booths that we were physically there at. And so the people who came by, it was like, if they kind of caught our eye, you go, hey, want to come and play? And you can tell right away if people are interested or not. And, the best that we do is just be there. So, our booth is beautiful and like we have. So I'm like, you kind of, it is your game or isn't? Yeah, I mean, I'm asking people to wish list it and put out the word for it because that's kind of my best marketing at the moment by testimonial and word of mouth. I don't know. Oh, sorry. And also, I'm just hoping that the East Asian diasporic population of the world does that thing where we like all rally around the single Asian person. like when Michael Chang was a big tennis player, like South Africa, Chinese communities were like, we're all watching. So anyway, I don't know if that fully answers it, but
yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for the talk. For a writing and narrative design perspective, especially as someone who's not living in that culture, immersed exactly in that culture, as you say, you were in South Africa, how, as part of the dev team, how do you try to refresh your own knowledge of the cultural things you're trying to represent when you're writing? And what advice would you give to, say, an audience who's working on a game that's not necessarily their culture, but they are interested in it and they want to make it as good as possible. So they want to, they can't live those experiences necessarily, but they can maybe do certain ways to research it. Is there any particular suggestions that you would have?
Food. You should order nice lunches of that culture. Um, our team is really lucky in being majority East Asian, but I think just by the way that things come up in general organic conversation, that really supports what we're doing in our game. I mean, Connie took Mid-Autumn Festival off, and I was like, oh, you're way more Chinese than I am. You took the day off. Like, yeah, but I mean, the conversations and research really help, you know, and having members of your team that support the culture that you're representing. It's also a hiring thing. But there's, oh, this is gonna be a blog now, isn't it? Yeah, there's lots that you can do to support and to encourage knowledge. I mean, the team for Iwaju, they had weekly "What is life like in Nigeria" Zoom discussions, and for them that really worked because they had someone on the ground who would teach them, you know, like take them around Lagos and show them in drive-by videos, like this is what the towns look like, and this is the food at the market that I'm going to. There's lots of ways to authenticate experiences.
Thank you.
There's another question from the balcony.
Hi, thanks for the talk. I was just curious, on the dev side, I was just really interested in the whole 12 like different gameplay mechanics that you guys are doing. I was just curious, like if there was any kind of challenge with kind of doing so many different gameplay mechanics, and what exactly inspired you guys to kind of do that for each one?
Oh, so I'll take the credit and fall for that. When I was originally doing the narrative design, like there's no game designer particularly, it's me. So the team just let me go to town with all these mechanics, which was really awesome. The way that sorry, so the game is pegging you to a human character named Little Dove, and then his life milestones and his family's life milestones create the backdrop for what you're doing mechanic-wise. So it was easier to identify mechanics based on what the age of Little Dove is going to be. So he's, you know, at age 13, he's going to be different from 26. So 26, I was like, oh, we're doing a dating sim because like he has to find a wife. And in that way, it flowed really naturally. And then some mechanics had to change a little bit because of the way that just scope and you know, time and that kind of thing. So the pig level for tower defense actually came about through iteration and as we were storyboarding it. And it was like, like I knew I wanted a dollhouse, and it originally started with this thing of like we're gonna close doors and make surprises, and you're gonna have to, you know, chase your characters, and then doors will close, and then that's how it goes. But then it was like, oh, let's just make it a tower defense. So that was a very natural kind of iterative flow.
Awesome,
So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Question on the left.
Hi. Hi, Deb. Thank you for the amazing presentation. You talked briefly about funding and market viability. Did you feel that you have to constantly juggle between cultural and commercial aspects when making a cultural-centric game? Are there things that you have to constrain or add, trying to appeal to a wider market? Could you talk a little bit about those challenges?
Sorry, if I understood the question well enough, what are my challenges in marketing culturally?
Right. Like,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. You have to hit all the holidays for every social media thing.
Oh, no, I think you misunderstood the question. The question is, how do you, when making a cultural centric game, how do you balance between commercial viability and the cultural elements in the game?
Oh, how do I balance commercial viability? For this, it was like, we're going to appeal to people with this beautiful, beautiful art style. It's going to be at least 2 hours of gameplay. There's going to be lots of mechanics that make it super fun. We're also really big on accessibility and inclusivity. So for as much as we can include accessibility features, we will. They are part of our wireframing and our core plan. And so if we don't make it to actual launch, they're definitely on our nice to have if a publisher were to give us lots and lots of money to add more to it and have a second edition, that's where we would go to town. Yeah, I mean, the things that we put in our funding applications were like, this will appeal to a great audience who is, underrepresented and does not have a game that speaks to this kind of original content. We sold it like that. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
That perfectly segues into what I was going to ask about. You mentioned the challenges, but also the validity of getting funding for your game, and that you did some of that through government funding and subsidies and grants. Did you have any advice or suggestions on how to go about that incredibly complex process?
So do I have any tips for getting government funding?
Yes.
Yes. Start early. If you have someone review your application, don't give them just a weekend. Offer to babysit their children. Sorry, this might be a blog. You can talk to me afterwards about it. So yeah, I'm getting the this is the end sign.
Sure.
So thank you all for listening. Again, I have stickers.